Hey, sports fans, it's Larry Eder with RunBlogRun. The program is Socialing the Distance. We're featuring Rana Reider, one of the top coaches in the world. Known Rana for about a decade. He actually answers my questions, and thoughtfully. I pretty much only see him at big track meets or when we're traveling in Europe. But Rana, great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for your time. So give me your current roster of athletes you're working with.
The main ones in terms of, so I have obviously Christian Taylor, Nia Ali, Andre DeGrasse, Adam Gemili, Trayvon Bromell. That's some of the top ones. It goes a little bit deeper than that, but yeah.
I didn't know you had Trayvon. He's one of my favorites. I spent time with him in Manchester in 2016, and just a good guy. And I like Andre too. He's got a little bit of attitude. He was fun. I interviewed him in Doha, and I just like. I mean, they're great kids. So
they're good guys. Trayvon started with me last summer, and so it was about 18, 19 months to get him back to where he could actually run and have some decent performances. So it was a good journey so far. A long ways to go, but pretty good start.
Let's just start there. When an athlete is in an injury cycle, what do you look at? Do you try to figure out where the weaknesses are and how you build those back up? What's the challenge?
I mean, everyone's injuries are different, and what their process was during, like how they got hurt and what their rehab was after, and what the process is going to be to get them healthy. And so, like with Trayvon, brought him in. We did some basic hop tests and some real basic stuff that he couldn't do, and figured out that we were kind of starting from scratch. And so we just started from scratch and get him to a point that he could be comfortable doing really basic stuff and kind of work from there. So I mean, it's everyone. I try and do an individual program for everybody and figure out what they can and can't handle and what's worked for them in the past and what I want to see compared to what they think they need to see. So,
do you work with any of the federations anymore?
Well, I've been associated with the Chinese Federation the last 3 years.
Okay.
And then I just have the individuals that I coach from different countries, and then I have to interact because of relays or finances or whatever reason. But yeah, but for the most part, I've been linked in with the Chinese Federation.
But in the past, I recall you working with the British Federation. Was it the Dutch Federation as well?
Yeah, when I left the UK, I was with the Dutch Federation for 4 years. And then when I came back at the end of 2018, that was when I left the Dutch Federation and started my own group here in the U.S.
How long have you worked with Christian Taylor?
I recruited Christian out of high school, so going back all the way. Yeah, so I sat in his house and did an in-home visit and had him come to University of Florida and visit. And so we've known each other his whole adult life, basically, since he was 17.
Why did you recruit him?
I mean, he was the best triple jumper in high school during that time. Plus, he could run, and so the relays at Florida and being a big time jumper, he was the guy in my head that was the best guy moving forward.
I've talked to Christian 10, 15 times. I always enjoy seeing him. I remember watching him in Pichardo. It's got to be 14 or 15.
15.
And it was like a boxing match, man. It was one of the coolest things. What had happened was I had missed his first 18-meter jump. I was at the meet. I was watching something else, and I had to go. I went and apologized to him. And he just smiled and he said, "You got to watch every jump, So I wrote about it, right? So the next time I'm watching, I think it's Lausanne.
Yeah.
And Pichardo comes up and kind of bumps him.
Mm-hmm.
And he just you could see him fuming, but he was able to focus it all. And it got me to want to appreciate the triple jump a lot more, and also the level of competition.
I mean, 2015 was special because it was after 2013, like he's said over and over, we switched legs in 2014. And so, we ran 400s, we did other stuff, and then we jumped from a short approach most of the year trying to adapt to that other leg. And then, 2015, it was, we opened up in, I think, Drake, and it was freezing cold. We came from a short approach, and everyone was thinking that he wasn't in great shape, but we knew he was in good shape. But then, we went to Doha, and Teddy was warming up very well, and then Pichardo was there, and Pichardo jumped big, and so it was kind of the turning point in terms of understanding that he was going to be really good off the other leg.
When we see you at a meet, we'll see you in the stands. We'll take a picture of you. What are you advising Christian on in a competition? Do you tell him about like that, or is it just, hey, you're off a little bit, or how does that work?
There's technical stuff that we go through.
Okay.
Obviously, we've worked together long enough that, like, it doesn't matter what I like. Like, that's the biggest thing with Christian is no matter what I tell him, he's going to do it. Like, there's no conversation. Like, he's completely bought in from day one of what I want him to do.
Okay.
And so it could just be like trying to get him to get excited because, some years he's jumping so much farther, or trying to find some internal fire. When it's not a big meet and he's done all he's done, then we have to have, a dialogue that tries to get him excited to jump far if he's already winning. And then it could just be technical stuff. You're in terms of the speed of the approach or some technical stuff that he needs to work on through the phases. So it just depends. But like at big meets, it's specific to technique. Do this and this and done. So and he listens exactly what I have to say, and it usually works out okay so far.
As an elite coach, you'll be coaching several athletes at the same meet. So do you go from like the 100 start to where they've got the triple jump set up to where you're watching another athlete do the 400, or how do you work it?
So if it's a day just for sprints, I stay on the warm-up track.
Okay.
There's a screen out there. I don't ever go in the stadium.
Okay.
I prefer to be on the warm-up track because if I'm talking to myself or acting like an idiot, I prefer to just kind of hide from everybody.
No, I get it.
And then, but like with the jumps, and it's at a big meet, or I have to go from warm-up track to stadium, and you have to figure out how to get there, and it's not the easiest to get access to those certain areas because, like at World Champs and Olympics, they'll ask the jumps coaches to walk in together, right? They escort them into the coaching area. And so if I'm warming someone up for the hurdles or a sprint event, and I need to get to that event, but I need to make sure this athlete gets into the call room, and it becomes an issue. So like Shara Proctor, looked good last year, qualified for the final at the World Champs, had a really big foul on her first jump, but it was the 100 hurdles semifinal and final. So Shara was on her own for a couple of jumps, and it didn't work out so well. So that's just kind of the risk of having a bigger group and having, not having an assistant coach at a major championship, or just the overlap of the jumps is sometimes a pain in the butt.
What has it been like during the pandemic to work with athletes? How have you had to modify your regular work protocols? I mean,
we have worked out, but we didn't have access to a track. We did, we were on grass field, and we got kicked off the grass field, and then we went to another area, got kicked off of that. So like we probably went to 9 different areas. So we when we shut it down at the end of August, we still didn't have access to the track. So there was a small indoor training area that I was able to rent. And so we were either, in there lifting, and we're able to do accelerations and do general stuff, or just out in an area just trying to get some runs in. So, and once the park, a couple parks opened back up in Jacksonville, we went out and ran on the turf or the grass fields. But yeah, it was a nightmare, to be honest. It was to get people keep them training and be able to have some races down in Claremont and get some stuff in was, a miracle in itself, but it was a nightmare.
Did you go to Europe at all this summer?
I didn't. Okay. I stayed here, and Christian went over. Adam Gemili went back home. Jimmy Vicaut's visa ran out, so he had to go back home. My assistant coach is Italian, so he went back to Italy, and then he helped Christian out for 3 weeks. And so people are all over the place, and so it's sending training is not the same as being there. And so the group that was here, we were able to train pretty consistently, and I was making adjustments, and me and Christian have a pretty good relationship to where he understands what I want after all these years, but people that are newer into the program really suffered.
Sure. Adam Gemili had a couple good races this summer, and not as fast as I think he wanted, but he a couple good 200s. I like Adam. He's I've interviewed him a bunch of times, especially with his relay team, and they put some stuff together. What is he always jokes about that he should change his Twitter thing with the number 4 in it. And he's right in that battle. What do you think is his best event? You think the 200 is his best?
I think he has a good rhythm for the 200. I think, and he enjoys it. The chances of making a mistake in the 100 are so little with the guys that are running really fast, and so. Technically he's gotten much better, but from when he came into the group, his body was pretty beat up. And so we missed a lot of training. And last year was the first year we made it from fall training all the way through the season to where, we knew we were building up in the right way. He did tear a hamstring at the World Relays. And so that took us out for about a month. So I think that was the biggest problem we had going into World Championships, because he just didn't have the amount of high level reps. We did really good sessions, but it wasn't at that, that breaking point to where you can go faster and faster. And so fourth place it's a nightmare.
I've watched Jimmy Vicaut. I go to the French Championships. They have the best food for media guys, and it's the only place I can have wine when I'm watching a track meet. And I've watched Vicaut and Lemaitre duel with the press over there, but also duel with each other. Just how good is Jimmy Vicaut?
I've never seen anyone so powerful and strong and be able to do what he does with under training load, like with resisted runs, with weight training. And like when he came in, he just said he needed to make some changes. And so he worked his butt off from, November all the way through, just doing the long runs and getting fit. And so we were making progress to where it was going to be, I thought he was going to do some really scary stuff, better than I've ever seen. Wow.
Yeah, I think he's a talent. I've watched him when it clicks, man, he's there, and it's just, I think he can take the European record and put it in a place that people are going to go, yeah, that's going to stay there for a while. So
yeah, that's how we felt, as the training year was going on. He was staying healthy and just the change of environment and being in a focused, really professional group. Our testing and stuff, it was faster than he'd ever done in France. And I was feeding videos to people that know the French, know his history. And they said that was the best he'd ever looked. And so,
wow.
Yeah, we were headed in the right direction. And then obviously, all for naught.
What do you tell athletes about this year? How have you helped them put it in perspective?
I mean, initially, we didn't know how long it was going to last or what was going to go on. And so when we got kicked off the track, we had a long time until they canceled the Olympics. Mm-hmm. So I basically said, this is your job if you're getting paid. And if you're in this group, you are getting paid. So we need to clock in every day and get the work in. So if there is a season, we're ready to go. Yeah. And then once the games were canceled and then once travel was getting banned and all the stuff, I just said, our goal is to train as deep into the summer as possible, whether we race or not. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter, because if we're going to have an Olympics next year, we have to have a certain amount of training months in, because the longer we take off, the adaptation going into 2021 is going to take that much longer. And so I just kind of focused in this is our job and this is what we need to do. And so, I mean, from my vantage point, it was a nightmare, because, you have a rhythm of what you do as a coach. And even though everything's individualized, you still have a mindset. But, when you think you're going to go train at an indoor facility, you're going to have the whole thing. And then you end up having a small part of it. And then you normally have a big gym with certain equipment. And now you don't. And so the amount of work to keep everyone training for those amount of time was a nightmare. But for the most part, the athletes did a good job. I mean, the group stayed training for a long period of time. We were able to get some good meets in. I mean, with DeGrasse running 997 and Trayvon running 990, like I don't think people realize the significance of. I mean, everyone's favorite thing is, oh, I knew he always had it in him and he was going to get back. But like Trayvon worked really hard, and I'm not the easiest person to deal with. So when everyone else's training was 3-4 hours long, Trayvon would have another 45 minutes to an hour of rehab and extra exercises. And then, my therapist is having to work overtime because this is what I want. This is what I want to correct over these times. And so it just builds and builds. And then with the Gross running, 997, like we opened up at 10:0 something last year and we had a perfect preparation. So him running 997 off of some really, muted type training sessions and really just working on a few things. Like I was like, we were heading in the right direction to do something serious. So
yeah, when I did a feature about Trayvon, just said he's back. It was our biggest story of July.
No, that's cool.
Kids love him, and I think it was just he was a lot of fun in 16 and 17, man. So people are looking forward to him. I think the sports personality thing is a big deal. So I'm taking a whole different direction. Why do you coach?
Man, I can tell you, I remember watching. I'm the youngest of 5 boys. And I remember watching my oldest brother run at Arcadia back in the early 80s.
Wow.
And so, I can tell you it was a blue uniform. He had a gold chain, no socks on with his spikes. And like that just like made an impression on me that I love track and field. And then I just started to watch as much as possible. And then obviously the 84 Olympics are in Los Angeles. I'm 14 years old.
Yeah.
And so I just fell in love with the sport from an early age. I did, a little bit of age group stuff when they, in California they do, you run a 400 and throw a softball and do all kinds of stuff when you're 9, 10-year-olds. And so I just liked it. And so it was something that, I just fell in love with. My high school coach was very good at keeping us involved, and I needed a distraction to not be running the streets. And so he ended up being, the saving grace. And so, I just love to be able to, like, now that I'm into it all these years, like, it's my dream job. So, like, I'm not trying to go to another level. Like, this is it. But to be able to get someone to reach their goals, to be able to see Christian smile or have a tear on a podium, or to see Nia Ali after having 2 children, win her first world title and the 9th fastest, race ever. Like, for me, I watch him win, I watch him do the stuff, and then I'm on the bus back to the hotel because, like, that was my job. That's why I do it. I just enjoy that part of it.
Yeah. What is when I sent you a note, I said, we're going to talk about the art and the science of being a coach. With the science, I take it that you break down moves into the simplest things you can and figure out how to make them better. But with the art, your cheerleader, your confessor, your coach, you have a lot of different roles doing what you do, and you're working with the best of the best. How do you teach them? How do you teach a top athlete to deal with the stress of being at the top level?
I mean, I started my coaching with it's Ted Banks as my mentor.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I know
right?
Ted.
So Ted Banks was the guy that kind of taught me how to coach.
Mm-hmm.
And so from a perspective on how to deal with athletes and how to act, like he gave me a lot of advice, right? And he made me understand energy systems, all this stuff. And then Randy Huntington, Lauren Seagrave, like John Smith, all these guys are people that I just used to annoy the hell out of, asking questions, calling them, trying to get information on. And so, like, putting all that together is, you figure out how to coach. But then as your personality, I've been coaching my whole adult life since I was 21. And so your personality starts to adapt to each individual you coach. And so what I can say to Christian and push Christian's buttons, I can't say to Trayvon, because Trayvon, where he comes from, he's going to want to fight me, right? Yeah. And so you have to figure out what to tell him. And in terms of the pressure, like they have to feel the pressure, because if they don't feel the pressure and understand walking into a stadium at a major championship, like, then they're never going to be able to get to the level of being a medalist or actually being in the moment of like, you can be the best in the world, you can do these things. So I put pressure on them every day.
Okay.
And so when we train, when they have conversations with me, when I talk about technique, when I talk about my expectations, it's at a high level. I mean, I do have conversations with athletes that want to join the group, and I just say, this group, like, I'm not going to give you hugs and I'm not going to make you feel great every day. That's not my job. My job is to push you to the point of being the best you can be. Sometimes you're going to be mad at me. And Danielle Carruthers, like, when I coached her and, you know, she won her first medal in her 30s, like, she let me know how she felt about me on a regular basis. and so she was a pretty volatile personality, and she would go off, but I was able to push her buttons to get her to run very fast. And so you just have to find, it's being a people person. And off the track, I spend a lot of time by myself. I have had a single focus my whole adult life to be the best coach possible. But on the track, you have to adapt and understand who you're talking to, especially with this generation. Like, your coaches, as my coaches, you know, we got MF'd every day and we were told all these different things. And you try and do that today, like, they're changing groups, they're calling their managers, they're leaving because you hurt their feelings, and they're going to tweet about it and put an Instagram post about it. So you have to, you know, I turned 50 in the summertime and I'm like, holy crap, I'm 50. But like how I coached when I first started as how I coach now, like, my interactions with athletes are different because I can't say the same things, but I'm still that aggressive person. Yeah. Just has to be presented in a different way.
I just remember Brooks Johnson used to let me go watch him coach. And this is, you know, and I was a young coach, and I would go ask him questions. He was great. We'd argue about everything. But watching him coach the first few times was, watching him and then watching other coaches was just mind-boggling. And everyone seems to have an attitude, you know, and I think it's how you communicate with your athletes. What is the, do you look for new athletes to come to your group, or do the athletes come to you?
I don't recruit athletes or kind of look for them. Like, I've never really like contacted and called people because I just have never had to. Like, and so, it's not, you know, there's like, you know, athletes leave managers, athletes leave coaches, but it still makes the coach that got left pretty irritated and upset, right?
Sure.
And so there's a professionalism. Like, if a shoe company makes someone come to me because they're sponsored, then I'll make a phone call and say, hey, this is what's going to happen. And then you hope that, you know, it's professional and they understand it's business, but people still get upset. And so I try to not recruit. I mean, I have a big group and people are calling all the time, and I say no most of the time. There's a lot of, I mean, I've had groups that are really powerful and really good, but if you have a bad apple because you let them join because you thought they could do this, or you wanted it for money, or the shoe company told them, or you're doing a manager a favor, it doesn't work out that well. And so, you know, it's finding the right atmosphere. And, you know, I'll get rid of people that don't fit that atmosphere anymore. I guess I'm too old to just keep people around that I don't like.
When you worked with Ted Banks, was it at Riverside?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I met him in '84. Peanut Harms brought him over to Bellarmine when I was coaching, and I got to interview Don Bowden, the first guy to go under 4 minutes a mile.
Yeah.
But Coach Banks was fascinating to me. You know,
was he with Converse? He had just left.
Yes, he was with Converse. Jim Howell brought him over to see me, and you know, and Dwayne Peanut Harms loved Banks, you know, and I got to ask him questions, which to me was so cool. But he just had a demeanor, and that gets me to the next place. As a coach with elite athletes, are you their friend or their coach?
I'm their coach.
Okay.
Like, I'm their coach. I'm not, I mean, you have to have a rapport with them.
Sure.
And some people need to have more of a friendly atmosphere. Me and Adam, you know, we do coffees and dinner once in a while. You just have to have an idea what they have going on outside the track.
Sure.
And some is just, this is business. I'll see you at the track. This is what we're going to do. And if you mess it up, I'm going to let you know. And if you mess it up again, I'm going to call your manager. You mess it up again, I'm calling your sponsor, and that's going to be it.
Yeah.
Like, the biggest thing is, like, if you, like, I always like to look at the different eras, right? And so, like, you look at Leroy Burrell and Carl Lewis and those guys, Santa Monica track clubs, and you know, you used to go to Mount Sac back in the day. It'd be a packed crowd, and you watched the way they acted, and they were very professional. They were kind of standoffish or whatever, but you could see it was their profession. They were there to make money, right? And then you go to, like, Maurice and John Smith's group during that time with Maurice and Otto and Drummond and those guys, and they had a little more of a relaxed feel for it, and the powerful groups were starting to form, but man, they got it done. And I love to watch, like, Maurice, like, from warm up area 1 to call room 1 to call room 2, and then stepping onto the track behind the blocks. Like, you watch that transformation, and then now, like, you kind of see, they think it's sportsmanship, whatever, but you see the athletes are a lot more friendly. And I think some of the competitive edge and some of the stuff that the fans loved from all just the craziness, like, you'd hear about fights off the track, and you hear about different things, and now everyone's hugging after races, and I'm just like, what are you hugging about? Like, that person just took your paycheck. Why are you hugging them? They just beat your ass. Like, so, like, some of the stuff is weird to watch for me.
No, Maurice is a warrior, and I always enjoy that. And I just remember the story when I took my son to his first Olympics in 2004. We were watching the semifinal of the 100, and I told him who was going to make the final as they lined up, because I saw who was business and who was focused and who was looking at the 80,000 people on the track.
Yeah.
And I told him, you can't be a fan when you're on the line, And that was one of the things that, when I watched you, especially I watched you and I watched Lance, you guys have that great ability to be able to interact with the athletes, but also they know that you're their coach. And I just think that that's important. And there has been a change, and I miss the personality thing sometimes, I think especially that's one of the things that people liked about Usain Bolt is there was personality. Now, was he nice to people? Sure. But there was also some personality there too, And
I mean, he could enjoy the moment, but then turn it on.
And I think
run fast, and then, but he wasn't. I mean, after races, you didn't see him worrying about hugging people and doing like he was doing his victory laps and showboating. And so, anyways, it's just trying to find that balance of how friendly you can be, how you can push them, and what you need to do. But like the different eras are all different. Like, and something like Banks, told me from the very beginning, like, you always have to act like you've done it before, whether you fail or whether you coach someone to a gold medal. Like, act like you've been there before, and that's why I stay on the warm up track. Because, like, I mean, when Nia won last year, I think I acted like a fool, and I'm like, that's doesn't happen too often. Normally, I'm like, oh yeah, that was supposed to happen. But we had talked about how fast I thought she could run like throughout the year, and her running that fast there, But
that was pretty impressive. I mean, I'll tell you, because that was I've tried to explain to people the conditions in Doha, with the exception of being in the stadium, and it was one of the hottest places I've ever been in my life. And
I mean, luckily we based in Germany before we went to Doha, and it was exceptionally hot in Germany, like when we were training. But we, like, a lot of people use the indoors to warm up and train at, but we didn't. We stuck to our normal training schedule. We stayed outside and always used that area. We went back and forth, so we were kind of like set on how we wanted to do things, and it worked out. But it was kind of a crazy World Championships.
Will Claye and Christian tend to bring the best out in each other? I'm fascinated with that relationship. Can you shed any light on that? They competed in college together. They competed in high school against each other too, right?
Maybe a bit at a couple of the meets, but it was more high school. I mean, more college when they got to college.
Okay.
like Christian always is looking for some way to get himself excited.
Yeah.
And you can see it at certain meets. He has this internal dialogue where he's able to push himself. And so just competing against Will on a regular basis, I think just they have such a history that he's able to elevate his game regardless. And so, Teddy, Will, Pichardo, like those guys are able to get his adrenaline going and make him, want to jump out of the pit.
What was it about Teddy's jumping that you were impressed with?
Man, that was the most powerful, unbelievable guy I've ever seen with triple jump.
Uh-huh.
Like he just had horsepower that no one else had.
Yeah.
His hop step and the way he did things, he was just made for the triple jump.
Yeah. He did an interview in French and English about 5 years ago in Brussels with me and a bunch of guys talking about how he grew up and stuff. And you're just like, wow, that he actually made it through it. Totally blew my mind. And just watching him compete, I would go over and watch him compete in France. Because I always wanted to get a feel for the different guys. I would go to the French championships because no one else went there. And I got to see everybody and ask people questions, which was kind of cool. If you were competing now, what event would you do?
What event would I want to do?
Yeah, what event would you want to do?
The 400 hurdles.
Okay.
Just because that's such a competitive event right now. And so there's, 3 or 4 really good guys. And so if you're going to be one of the best guys, that would be a fun event to be in.
What do you think of Karsten Warholm?
He's putting together a hell of a career in 3 years?
Yeah.
And the season's incredible. I've known his coach for a very, very long time. And when he was a decathlete, I spoke to his coach about different training and he's doing a heck of a job. And Karsten's good for the sport.
What do you think of Rai Benjamin?
I think if he learns how to hurdle and actually puts in the work hurdling, he'll be a hard guy to beat.
Yeah. That was always my complaint about Karan Clement. I just could not stomach watching him over the last 2 hurdles because I thought he was going to use his hand, and one of the most talented athletes I've ever seen in my life. Just couldn't. It was just amazing to me that he didn't get the world record. Still befuddles me. Yeah,
you look at Angelo, I felt like should have broke the world record. And then Karan, he had such a great season. I remember they talk about these guys' speed and the 400 hurdles. Like I remember Karan ran 10 low and opened up at 2040 on a soft track in Miami the year he won the world title.
Yeah.
And then the next year, he moved to LA and had to kind of went backwards. So athletes make different decisions, but that's not what it was for lack of coaching that he didn't hurdle properly. That's for sure.
Do you work for one specific brand or do you work for a bunch of brands?
I am now with Puma.
You are?
Contract. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
I've signed a Puma contract. And so the people that aren't Puma can stay in the group, but moving forward, it'll be an exclusive Puma group.
You work with Pascal?
Yes.
Yeah. Wonderful.
He's my boss.
Yeah. Pascal's a great guy. I've known him for ages. And when I need to ask questions, he's one of those guys who will actually respond. And I always appreciate that.
He's a really good guy and a good guy to deal with and work for. And it's a great company. From retooling spikes to like my group we have our own color uniform with our own logo on it.
Cool.
Different than the rest of the world. And so, it's pretty special for me.
Yeah, they picked up some good athletes. And my buddy Mark Bossardet, who's at Under Armour, and I always do scores in the meets this summer. And we're just going, God, Puma's really put some stuff together. And they have some interesting athletes that they pulled in too. So I like that too.
If you figure with Karsten in the 400 hurdles and then Mondo in the pole vault.
Oh my God.
And then a lot of people don't realize that Omar McLeod is with Puma now.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. So you got Omar and then DeGrasse and so if you figure Puma's got the best, like one of the best European sprinters, right? With Jimmy Vicaut's Puma. You
Yeah.
have Divine Odeduru, who's the best African sprinter with Puma.
Yeah.
You have Hakeem Sunny Brown, Asian sprinter.
Yeah.
And then you have DeGrasse, the only guy to medal in both events last year. So, and then Omar, Jamaican, and they're all in one camp.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So we're down to about 2.5 minutes. You've survived, Rana.
This is good. Easy. It's like we're sitting at a hospitality or somewhere.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it's like. Do you have an inspirational quote that you tell your athletes? Is there something that when they're in a tough place, you try to get them to think about or try to inspire them?
Not a specific quote, but I just try and relate to different things that they can go to. Because if like Andre and like all of them are so different. It's just trying to relate to what they can understand. Like I can't use a quote that Trayvon would like as opposed to what Adam Gemili would like. Slightly different upbringing, slightly different world. So just trying to make them understand, really making them understand not to waste their talent. Like when it's gone, it's gone. There's no going back. And so I try and just hold everyone accountable to what their God-given talent is. And so that's kind of what we do every day.
All right, Rana, thank you so much for your time. It's great seeing you again. I look forward to seeing you on the track next spring somewhere.
I hope
hopefully in Europe. God, this is my first year not in Europe in 20 years. Yeah, so I just
same. I've never just so you know, Florida in the summertime for me, this is the first time I've had a house in Florida since 2007. This is the first summer I've been in Florida.
Wow.
Not ideal. So,
all right. Well, thank you very much.
Nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you too. This is Larry Eder, RunBlogRun, Socially the Distance with Rana Reider. Rana, thank you.
Yeah, take care.
All right, thanks, man. Talk to you soon. Hey, sports fans, Larry Eder. The program is Socialing the Distance. We featured Rana Reider, an elite coach. Today, he's with Trayvon Bromell, Andre DeGrasse, Nia Ali, Christian Taylor. Good guy. I've known him for at least a decade. Would see him at meets in Europe, ask him questions, and like Lance Brauman, they would actually answer them and crack up a little bit and talk to me. But Rana is a class act, and he's been worked with the British Federation, worked with the Dutch Federation. Now he's working with the Chinese Federation. And he's one of those guys who can take an event apart, break it up, make you a better athlete. Look at you when you have an injury problem, help you figure out what the issue really is so we can bring you back to high quality level. What he did with Trayvon Bromell is pretty impressive. And what he did with Andre DeGrasse is pretty impressive as well, too. He's been with Christian Taylor since Christian was a freshman in college. So I think they kind of talk by Morse code sometimes. But Christian knows what Rana wants him to do, and they can do it remotely, which is kind of cool. Most athletes, you have to be around the coach. But sometimes, some relationships, some healthy, seasoned relationships, you can do that, which I think is pretty cool. We talked about training. We talked about the art of coaching. Rana was influenced by coaches like John Smith, especially guys like Ted Banks. And he had several other of the top coaches, including, I believe, one of Mike Powell's coaches, the long jumpers coaches, too. And Rana's big brother ran at the Arcadia Invite, and I think that's when he fell in love with track and field, about 1980. He was 14 when the LA Olympics hit, and he was really into it. And he's been in love with track and field ever since. He's about 50 years old, a little younger than me. Well, a decade younger than me, Jesus. Everybody's younger than me. And he really enjoys it. But he said the pandemic's been really a challenge. They didn't, through the entire pandemic, they didn't have use of any facilities. It was difficult. They were out on the grass a lot. And in the old days, he would get a full indoor facility and he would get a little bit of a room now. It's been really difficult for them, but they did work out until the end of August. Now they're taking a break. He had Adam Gemili over here for a while, but then Adam had to go back. He had Jimmy Vicaut, who he says is one of the most talented athletes around, and had Jimmy in great shape. So we'll have to see what Jimmy can do next year. That'll be a lot of fun. Jimmy's the top French 100-meter runner and the European record holder at the 100. And he has some other top athletes, a whole international cadre. He's working with the Puma brand now under Pascal Rolling. Pascal is a good guy, and I've known him for a long, long time. The brands have got, from Nike to Adidas to New Balance to Asics, good people in their sports marketing groups who really love the sport, and I think that's pretty awesome. And Puma, again, long tradition, great product. I ran in Puma stuff for a little bit, ran one of my best 10s. Got a pair of the Mark Nenow shoes back then. And so, good stuff. And he's got athletes from many brands with him now, and he's bringing in some athletes from Puma. So that should be pretty cool for him. He's in Jacksonville, Florida. First year in about 20 years he hasn't been to Europe, like moi, and going through withdrawal. Just getting an espresso and the pretzel as I get into the Frankfurt airport as I'm heading to my gate just tells me it's a good day. Probably a tomato juice too. Anyway, Rana is a lot of fun. He is a consummate coach. There's a coach-athlete relationship. He understands that each relationship with the athlete is unique, as are their training needs. And I think that's what separates a high school and college coach, for the most part, with an elite coach. The best college coaches, the best high school coaches understand each one of their kids has different challenges and different problems, and there's many ways to get to the same place. But you find out the unique way that keeps people healthy and keeps people motivated. At the end of the day, for Rana, it is a job, and he reminds the athletes it's a job too. And what their job is to train, even in a pandemic, so when the Olympics actually happens, when a world championship happens, they can compete. They're ready. Rai Reider understands that coaching is both an art and a science, and we're fortunate to have him in the sport. Rana, thank you for the time today. Mike Deering, thank you for producing all this. Before I close, if you like us, if you really like us, as Sally Field said, look it up on Google. She won an Oscar and said, "You like me, you really like me." Anyway, if you like us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, like us on Instagram, and you love us, subscribe on YouTube, okay? This is Larry Eder with RunBlogRun, the program Socialing the Distance. This is the epilogue for Rana Reider. Thank you.